Dan, when he lost the American election, there were a lot of Australians that, breathed a sigh of relief that they didn't have to ever see him again. Because the sight of him, quite frankly, made people anxious and worried about, their future. So what does this mean for, how much we're going to be seeing of Trump?
We are going to see a lot of Donald Trump in coming months. His case is going to be back in that Manhattan court in May, and then every few months after that it's going to be mentioned. It's like any other legal process. There are appointments before the judge, and Donald Trump, get ready for him to turn every single one of those appointments into a circus, into an opportunity for political gain. So you'll see the motorcades, you'll see, that's his plane today that he took for his trip from Manhattan to head down back to Florida, where he's going to be speaking shortly. But he is going to use this in every way he possibly can. So we'll be seeing plenty more of Donald Trump.
And when he was on, Trump Force One is the nickname of his private jet. When he landed, he dialed into an emergency prayer call with the National Faith Advisory to comment on the charges, and this is Donald Trump.
We had a tremendous success in the United States Supreme Court with the selection of 3 great justices who did something that nobody thought was possible, that's having to do with the thing called life. And we did literally something that nobody thought they would ever see. And now we have that, and now we're fighting for that, and we're fighting for many other things together. We're being discriminated against as a religion. We're being discriminated against as a faith, and we can't let that continue. I'm fighting very hard for the people of our country, but I'm fighting very hard for people of religion.
All right, so Donald Trump is about to come out and address his Mar-a-Lago ballroom. Dan, who's in the room?
About 300 of his closest supporters is what we're being told, Narelda. You can see the room there, and doesn't this look just like a campaign event? In fact, this very room at Mar-a-Lago is where he has held campaign events in the past. So I think we're going to see a lot of people in the room, a really friendly crowd, a pro-Trump crowd, and he's going to try and whip them up into a frenzy, just like one of his major political rallies. One thing I'll be watching for, though, and I'll be very interested to see, is whether we see his wife, the former First Lady Melania Trump, with him tonight. Obviously, a lot of these allegations, 2 of them in particular, relate to extramarital affairs that Trump has had in the past, or is alleged to have had. He's certainly denied at least one of them very publicly. But are we going to see her appearing with her husband when he comes out to speak to the masses? I think that will be a very telling moment indeed.
And are we going to see more charges relating to more payments that have been made to people, I wonder?
Look, I don't know whether we're going to see more charges in relation to these particular payments, because this is money that has been paid to his attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen. These payments have finished, they're done. But we are seeing other investigations that Trump is involved with. We know that, there's an investigation currently underway into what happened with the insurrection at the Capitol building. There's electoral interference investigations that are underway in other jurisdictions. This may well be one of the first of many criminal investigations that Donald Trump is facing, and that he will then have to battle as he tries to get back into the White House to serve another term as President of the United States.
Well, when we see him come out and with the fanfare that you've just described, it could be easy for some people to forget that this is actually the first former president that's facing criminal charges. He's facing criminal charges.
He is, very serious ones. They are felonies. These are not misdemeanours. They are low-grade felonies, Class E felonies, we are told. Those charges, if he is convicted of them, could lead to jail time. I think Reuters has added up the number of years jail if he was found guilty on all of them, and if those jail terms were served back to back to back. We're talking more than 100 years jail. Now, the guy's 76 years old. This could be every single day for the rest of his life behind bars. It is unlikely, though. These charges are low-grade felonies, and it is unlikely in New York, and history tells us that people who are charged with these offences are unlikely to do much jail time if they are first-time offenders. And as we know, this is unprecedented territory. Donald Trump has not been convicted of any crimes in the past. But no president has been.
What sort of person turns criminal charges, 34 of them, into a presidential campaign?
We talked about this yesterday. Only Donald Trump surely he's the only president who could turn something that is just, you know, to others would be such a shameful moment into sunshine and then try and make political hay out of it at the same time. And that is exactly what we are seeing. And when he comes out and speaks, expect him to come out and make his case for why he should still be president and why he should be the next president of the United States.
Now, the 300 people in the room, do you think a lot of them, I mean, we know they're his supporters, but would a lot of them be on his payroll, be his staff?
Potentially. You know, I mean, we're looking in the room. There's clearly a lot of fans there. You can see on the left of your screen there are people with their phones at the ready, hoping to snap pictures of Donald Trump as he comes out on stage. These are clearly people who are big fans of the former president, and they are going to give him a huge cheer as he walks out. Like we saw his supporters outside the courtroom this morning. There were his supporters out there speaking, rallying in support of him, holding signs. There were also a few protesters, a few detractors, people who felt that this was a long time coming, and they were very gleeful to see Donald Trump before a court. So
this is in his home of Florida. What was the situation outside the court in New York?
Look, there were scenes nothing like this, that's for sure, because
NYPD were unenforced.
NYPD were unenforced. We were told they had 35,000 officers on standby in case there was going to be trouble outside the courthouse, given what we saw with the insurrection on the Capitol. But that didn't eventuate, whether that's because of good policing or whether it's because the fact that, you know, New York, in particular Manhattan, is not a Trump-supporting area. 75% of the people in that area voted against him at the last election. So, you know, getting his supporters into New York may have been a difficult feat. They don't have a 757 private jet Trump Force One to fly from Florida or other parts of the country to get into New York. They were doing it on their own dime.
But there were anti-Trump people there as well,
there were both.
Court.
Yeah, there were both. And that's where there was a little bit of friction this morning. The NYPD was quite good, though. They kept protesters and supporters and media in pens outside the courtroom, because remember, this is New York City. This is, you know, the financial heart of the world. It's one of the busiest cities in the world, and they had to keep the traffic moving. You know, this is a place that is used to seeing celebrities, famous people, politicians buzzing around all the time, and for the most part, they're left alone and ignored. This morning, obviously, was an extraordinary moment in American history, but they had to keep those yellow cabs moving down the street, and that's why we saw the NYPD taking the action they did.
35,000 NYPD
on standby. On standby.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we expect a long line of people to come out today in condemnation of this, what we're seeing now?
What's been interesting is seeing some of his detractors within the Republican movement, people like Mitt Romney, who has been critical of him many, many times over, actually coming out and saying, look, I agree, these charges are fairly, and you'll excuse the pun, trumped up. But, you know, there are suggestions coming strongly from the Republican Party that if it was anyone else other than Donald Trump, he would not have been charged with these offences. You know, they date back 8 years. They're a long time back. They're posing the question, why are these charges being laid now? The District Attorney was asked about that today. He said, we worked on the case, we formulated the case. When the case was ready, that's when we moved forward. We put it to the grand jury. And it's the grand jury who decided that, yes, Donald Trump must answer these charges.
We have the District Attorney from earlier today. I wonder if we can play you some of what Alvin Bragg, and if Donald Trump comes out during we hear from Alvin Bragg, then we'll take you straight to Donald Trump. But here's the District Attorney.
Why did Donald Trump repeatedly make these false statements? The evidence will show that he did so to cover up crimes relating to the 2016 election. Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is, a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election. As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claimed to have negative information about Mr. Trump.
So these are the ballroom doors at Mar-a-Lago owned by Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, is about to come out and address 300 or so of his supporters and media that have gathered in this ballroom, which follows his arraignment in a New York court on 34 charges. Daniel Sutton is at the desk with me to talk through what these extraordinary scenes that we're seeing, actually, a former president facing criminal charges.
We're starting to see a bit of movement there, Narelda, behind those doors and in front of those flags. This looks like it's some of the Trump family coming out now, you can see, and I expect they'll walk into the room to some pretty loud cheers of applause, and we're seeing them waving, shaking hands. There you go. Big cheers for the Trump family there. So you'd expect that Donald Trump is not too far away. Let's have a little listen.
It's, as he said earlier, this does appear quite presidential. He is turning a campaign out of these criminal charges.
We have seen that for the past 2 days. That's the Secret Service arriving into the room there. That's his Secret Service detail. We have seen everything he's done over the past 2 days looking like the movements of a